Hey, thanks for being in the REC experience. I'm your host, Jas Takhar, with your girl, Laura Alto Stewart. What's happening?
Hey, Jazzy, how's it going?
Good. Just got my energy back. It's Tuesday morning, couple of days removed from our... I must
Whirlwind
say,
of
that's the word. The whirlwind of the weekend that was Saturday morning. Well, Friday night, myself, you, and Stephen Rochester drove to the nation's capital
In a snowstorm.
that we didn't know that was coming. Couldn't get any flights. There's the trains are not running like as scheduled, and so we took the drive.
We took the drive.
Hours. 5 hours, couple of stops. Got there for me going on stage. I think it was around 10:30 in the morning. Wrapped up. Had to get out of there around 12:30.
I know, and for us that's so strange. Usually we like to hang out afterwards and chit-chat with everybody.
Over 200 investors.
Yeah.
Shout out to Tony Miller. Thank you for putting on the event, and obviously thank you for having us, where we were able to talk about why we think Toronto is one of the safest places to invest in. And then right after that, we got back into Toronto.
Yeah.
5
Drove
o'clock-ish.
5 hours again.
5:30-ish, sorry.
Yeah.
And had another 100 investors talking about why we think Toronto is one of the safest places to invest in. Like that story doesn't change for us,
Never.
right? And I hear it a lot on social now and in meetings. You guys are always talking about the same thing. Like, I don't get it. Look, anyone here from REC, specifically me, you will not hear me talk about anything else when it comes to real estate.
And trust, when it comes to almost anything.
I talk about, 3-4 things. I stay in my lane. That's what I'm going to do. I'm not going to change the script.
Yeah. Depending on where you are and what it is, we stick to what we know.
We stick to what we know. And then Sunday night, same thing, another event. So it was really a crazy weekend we had.
We got to meet some amazing people. It was lots of fun.
Yeah. So if you have not yet subscribed to our YouTube page, and if you're watching, just like right up there, just get it done. And if you're listening while you're taking your dog for a walk, I didn't do the taking dad for a walk this time, taking your dog for a walk, or listening while you're driving, please make sure that you go onto the YouTube page and like our page, and guys and girls on our YouTube page, go to any podcast platform. But enough about us, enough about our page.
Yeah. Who are we talking about
We're
today?
talking about none other than Mr. David McCourt, author of Total Rethink. Just an amazing book.
So I'm halfway through the book.
You're halfway through the book.
Because I'm reading it. Jazz actually listened
Finished
to
the
it.
book.
You did it in like 2 days, so I guess I'm a slow reader.
I'm like going, I'm all right. I've already started listening for the second time.
Yeah, well, it's that good a book.
It
really
really is that good of a book. I just love everything that David McCourt put in this book, getting to know him even more through his social. Hopefully we get to meet him face-to-face for a face-to-face podcast episode. What you're going to be watching and or listening to is a phone call that we did. He was in Dublin. It's a busy man.
I think he was traveling like in Dublin, but he couldn't get on a screen because he was like at the airport or doing something. I'm not sure exactly, but
he stuck to his word.
Got
Got on a phone call.
Yeah.
Gave us some time.
A lot of time.
I think we did like close to 45 hour,
something like that,
hour episode this time around. And we didn't only just talk about what's in his book, but if you don't have this book yet, really like do yourself. I'm not getting paid. Laura's not getting paid to say this, but do yourself a favor. Get this book. It's all things that an entrepreneur needs to know. In my opinion, it's a lot more than that, though.
Oh, definitely. I think it's just what humans need to know.
Yeah.
On how to live life passionately, how to, chase your dreams and ultimately be a happy person.
And day by day.
Give back.
That was huge. And he's giving back through like what he wrote and in the book, but also with his time now. So we were so thankful, and I know you're watching or listening now, David. Thank you once again. You didn't get to see this pretty face or Laura's during the phone call, but thank you again for your time, all joking aside, and we are hoping to do a face-to-face with him soon.
Can we just let the listeners know, because most of our listeners probably, if they haven't heard of David McCourt for what he's done in terms of the telecommunications industry, where do they probably know him from?
Well, I'm glad that he came out and created the show Reading Rainbow because every time the teacher rolled in the TV set, I knew that was time.
And the song came on. Take a look. It's in a book. Reading Rainbow.
I hope your ears are still okay after that. It's a little soliloquy that our girl Laura went on.
So I'm not going to be picked up for a label after that.
No, I doubt it. Well,
no, okay.
Look, if there's anyone that can make it happen, it's going to be David. So, thank you for that.
Yeah. You're welcome.
So he created that show. That's obviously where a lot of our viewers and listeners might know him from. But if you're not sure if you should get the book and spend the $19 or something like that. What is it? Oh, it's $30. Sorry, Canadian. To our U.S. listeners and viewers, it's $25. Before, if you're not sure you want to spend that, I'm telling you, the ROI on this $25 or $30 is like 1,000x that, if not more. Like it is more than that. Google the guy. Find out what he's done. He's all over the media. He's just an amazing soul.
I think what you learn mostly from reading it and from our podcast is really like, you don't have any excuses.
Yeah.
The amount of hurdles that he had to overcome to get something done, and he never said no, and he always just looked for a solution. So
got knocked down like thousands of times, just kept on getting up. Guys, as always, thank you so much for all the feedback you've given us. We were nominated as one of Canada's top podcasts. It's because of you, not only because you listen and you watch, but the feedback. And we always have a running joke around here, like, give us the criticism, like
Unless it's about my singing voice.
Yeah, I know, that's other than
then
that.
Then don't give me the criticism.
I'm a big boy. I can handle it. And most importantly, that's how we grow. So huge shout out to all of our viewers and listeners. Keep giving us a review, hopefully 5 stars. If you haven't subscribed, do so now. If you're not following us on any of the platforms, audio platforms, please do that as well. Alto, for everything that you do around here, thank you, thank you, thank you.
You're very, very welcome. Enjoy the show.
REC Experience presents Real Estate, Entrepreneurship, Leadership with your host, Jas Takhar. The REC Experience podcast is now on air.
All right, guys, I am so excited to have none other than David McCourt on our podcast today. How you doing today, David?
I'm having a fabulous day, Jas. Fabulous day.
You are definitely a man of his word. I reached out to your team to make this happen. You're sitting in Dublin right now. I'm in Toronto. And you said, look, I have a very busy schedule, but let's do this through audio for our listeners on our podcast audio platform. And you stuck by it. Your team is amazing. Thank you for doing this episode with me, David.
Hey, no, Mike, thank you for reading the book. I'm glad you took the time or listening to the book. I'm glad you did it. I hope it helped.
I'm so happy because not only did I read it, my co-host Laura Stewart actually is almost complete reading it, and I listened to it. So it's neat because, with today's technology, and we're going to get into a lot of stuff with you. With today's technology, it takes no extra time. I'm driving. I have an hour drive into work, and I could be listening to the radio or listening to some music or listening to the news, garbage in, garbage out. But I always like to say that if you can take that time, like in the greater Toronto area, most people are driving on average equivalent to a 4-year degree for university or college. Imagine how much you can learn in that time. And I'm so glad I got to dive into your new book, Total Rethink, Why Entrepreneurs Should Act Like Revolutionaries. David, before we get even into your story, what made you write this book?
Well, Jas, look, I've been very, very lucky. I've had I had a great mother and father. I had a great group of brothers and sisters, great group of teachers. I've had a great mentor my whole business life. And most of that is not just luck. So you obviously can't pick your parents. You can't pick your neighbors. You can't pick your brothers and sisters. You can't really pick your teachers. So I've been very lucky, and I wanted to share that. I wanted to share some of the things that other people have taught me, some of the things I've learned. I wanted to share them with people that might not have had the advantages that I've had, so that they can be their best selves. Because I believe that there's a lot of entrepreneurs out there that haven't had the chance to express themselves, or the chance to get started. They don't have the confidence. They don't have, they don't have that little push that my mother gave me,
Now, like you had, did you mention you had 5 or 6 brothers and sisters? You're one of 5 or 6?
I'm the young.
You're the youngest?
Plus the 2 parents, plus the 2 grandparents. So there was 11 of us in the house, and I was the youngest of the gang.
Now, do you think that entrepreneurship it's born in you, or it could be taught?
It's basically a combination. I don't think it can be taught, but it's a combination of being born in you and sort of environmental. So it's not just, I don't think the option is born or taught. I think it's also environmental. Who were your parents? Who gave you confidence? Who were your friends? Who told you when you failed the first time and you were feeling miserable, who held your hand and said, hey, it's going to be okay. I failed as well. Don't worry. It's when you fall down, if there's no one there to pick you up, it's hard. If there's someone there to pick you up and brush you off and say, don't worry, it's happened to me before, then it builds confidence. So I don't think, Jas, it's just a choice of born or taught. It's environmental. Who else have you been around?
Now, as you mentioned, you were very lucky because I was listening to the book. Your mother played a huge part in maybe helping you shut out some of the negative noise and definitely putting in a lot of positive information. Talk to us a little bit about what she did practically and strategically, maybe even making sure that little David at that time stayed positive.
Well, she took care of little David, medium David, and big David. So she was with us until a couple months ago at the age of 102. And I got to tell you this, Jas, I'll tell you this. If she's not in heaven, you and I have no chance. You and I have no chance if she's not there. So it is, I'm in my office in Dublin, and what do I have on the wall? I have a 100th birthday gift that me and my brothers and sisters gave her to her. And it says in big letters, acceptance, gratitude, and attitude. And we had an artist make this painting for her. And that was her attitude, which was, you have to accept what life gives you. And if you have the right attitude and you pick yourself up and you keep on going, no matter what happens, just recognize someone else has it worse, pick yourself up, put one foot in front of the other, and keep on moving forward. And that was her attitude. Her attitude was anything you throw at her, she can handle. And she never quit, never complained. Now, I knew that woman my entire life. I never saw her complain, never heard her say a bad word about anyone, never heard her moan. She just, she was a wonderful, full woman in so many ways. But not everybody has that. So, right. So what you try to do is, what I was trying to do with the book is expose people to some of the things I've learned. And if you listen to the book, I wrote it in a very approachable way. I didn't. A lot of guys write business books, and it's you read it and it's all about, look how smart I am, look how powerful I am, look at all the great things I did. I started, listing all the stupid things I did so that people would, get by the first chapter and say, hey, this is not your everyday book. This book is very approachable. This guy is telling you all the things he did wrong and then interweaving maybe a few of the things that I did right within the story.
I think what you did at the start of this book, mentioning what happened at the dinner with at the White House and what you happened to put down your pants that day, it right away connected me to you because it's so different than when you are reading some of these other business books. I was like, oh, I kind of like this guy. He's letting it all out on the table.
And that was the point, because a lot of people pick up a book, they read the first few chapters, and it says something like, I knew at a young age I was gifted. My mother told me I was better than anyone else at math in my class. And you're like, okay, Dick. I didn't really need to hear that, right? So instead, by just saying, look, I've made every mistake that everybody else has had, that everybody else has made. And the difference is I had people that pulled me aside and said, okay, that was a stupid thing to do. Let me tell you why. And I was smart enough to take that advice, and I was smart enough to reflect on it and, leverage that. But I'll go right back to what you said at the beginning. What I was hoping is that people that, maybe in a community school or didn't go to school at all, or I started out my career as a probation officer, as a, people who grow up in a culturally isolated neighborhood where everybody is behaving a certain way, you start behaving that way, and that's the norm. We weren't all angels in South Boston. I can guarantee you that.
Why was it important for you to get this to get this book and your message across to people that haven't heard it? Like, what really brought that on? Is this like a legacy play for you? Like, how did this come about, and when did this come about for you?
Jas, I write a lot, so
Okay.
And I have a house in rural Ireland. I decided, why not buy a house in the rainiest part of the rainiest country on the planet, right? In the West of Clare. And I love nothing better than to sit by the window, watch the weather come across the fields. And I like to write. So I started writing, and then I said, maybe there's an outline of a book here. And then I started working on the structure of the book. And next thing you know, I have a book on my lap. And then Wiley, which is the oldest, I think, business book publisher in America, they said, yeah, we love the book. So I said, well, let's go. Let's do it.
So for me personally, one of the reasons I really I can't wait to listen to the book for a second time now. So now I can really start to take some of the strategies that you spoke about and start to execute on them. One thing that's always I'm 38 years old now, David. I run an organization of 35 people. It's a real estate organization that I run. So we help buyers, sellers, and investors right across really the greater Toronto area, but we do help people in the whole country of Canada. And something that's always that I've had with me, and I really just want your take on it, because I'm speaking to somebody, and to our listeners, I don't want to bore you with all the stuff that David has done. Go Google him. We have technology. This is somebody that is lots of business. So I'm trying to take this opportunity, and I will in the future with you, to also learn for myself. And as I've been going through the ups and downs of entrepreneurship, one thing that I've always held kind of close to me is a little chip on the shoulder of naysayers in my life. What do you say to me? And was there naysayers in your life that kind of gave you that chip on the shoulder?
Well, look, I'm Irish, so I'm well balanced. I have a chip on both shoulders. But Jas, you got to remember, when someone criticizes you or I, it's really a reflection of how they feel about themselves. Because what human being would think that they would gain any value by criticizing another human being? How does that add any value to society at all? All it does is, in their warped mind, they think by bringing you down, it brings them up. And so I find it comical when someone does that. I know that it's really a reflection of the insecurities that they have. It's a reflection of the holes that they have in their own soul, where they just don't feel fulfilled. So they've chosen to criticize someone else. And, it's, maybe when I was younger, it bothered me. I don't know. Now I just find it comical that someone would waste their energy. What do we have? About 650,000 hours, something like that on this planet, average. Why would someone waste one of those hours criticizing Jas or David? Why would they bother? How does that help any? It doesn't. And they think it makes them look better. It makes them look small, makes them look petty, makes them look stupid, in my view.
How did you get around that? Just shutting out the noise? Is that going back to because you had so much positive, the positive environment around you?
I think originally I used that as motivation to prove, that I could be successful. So at the beginning I used it as motivation. Now I don't even listen. I mean, I just look at it. I feel sorry for someone that would, waste a precious minute of their life criticizing someone else's instead of trying to be helpful. It's just, it's a full-time sport in the United States now. When I used to work for Tip O'Neill, who was a great American politician, Speaker of the House, my little desk was right outside his office. And he'd come back from the floor, and I'd say, would they be arguing over a bill or debating a bill or something? And I'd say, Mr. Speaker, how'd we do today? And he'd say, Davey, he used to call me Davey. He said, Davey, we got half. And that's the way the world used to work. People would say, so Jas, you would say one thing, I'd say something else.
Yeah.
And I'd say, look, just because you have a different opinion doesn't make you wrong. It means you have a different opinion. And just because I have a different opinion doesn't make me wrong. It means I have a different opinion. And the way the world works is you take Jas's opinion, you take David's opinion, and, you put them in a bag, you sort of shake them up, and out comes probably the right solution. You don't just say, well, Jas is an idiot because he doesn't agree with me, or Jas is evil. Right. Or worse yet, pull up some mistake that Jas made 20 years ago and start dragging him through the mud over some mistake he made because I have a different opinion about the way we should run the world than you. That's craziness.
I love how you were able to visualize so much. And I'm going to go into that in a second, but you mentioned Tip O'Neill, your mentor. You speak about him a lot in the book, and other mentors. For our younger listeners and wannabe entrepreneurs or guys and gals that are in entrepreneurship now, how does one go about finding a mentor?
That's an excellent question. I don't think you should look at it as one mentor. I think you should look at it as mentors throughout your life. You have to find people that you look up to and figure out how to sort of hook onto their wagon for a ride for a certain piece of your destination. And then you find someone else and you hook onto their wagon. And then you find someone else and you hook on their wagon. It's not unlike hitchhiking across Canada. You're not going to get one guy in Toronto. I'm sorry, I don't know the geography of Canada.
It's okay. Toronto to Vancouver. Use that.
Yeah, you're not going to go. You're not going to find one guy in Toronto that's going to take you to Vancouver, and I'm not going to find one guy in New York who's taking me to LA. You're going to have to take. You're going to have to go from New York. You might get to Chicago. You might get to Detroit. You might have to go to Ohio, which is sort of the wrong direction, and then maybe you're lucky and you find your way all the way to Omaha, and then you find your way to Denver, and then someone else gives you to Las Vegas, and then you finally get to San Francisco and you want to go down to LA, and maybe that last piece becomes the hardest piece because you think you've gone 3,500 miles and you only have a couple hundred miles left to go, but maybe that becomes the hardest. So you just have to grab onto whoever you can and just try to take your ride as far as you can with each person.
David, I've asked that question to hundreds of people. By far, best analogy, because I can resonate with that myself, but now anybody who's listening as well can understand it. When I was about 19 years old, I got my first mentor in the car sales business. He happens to run one of the biggest car dealers in the country, Paul Policaro, and he took me under his wing for 3 years. And then later on in my life, about a year and a half later, I met another mentor who took me under his wing. He's now passed, but he took me under his wing for probably a decade. He was kind of like similar to like the Tip O'Neill in your life. He was the guy in my life. And now, for anybody who's listening, if you're in the midst of finding a mentor, pick up books, audio books, because you might not be able to spend every day with David McCourt, but you definitely can keep on listening and reading his book, and he can be a mentor from far. And it doesn't have to come down to having someone in your life day to day. That too will come, but don't waste the time in between.
Don't waste any time, period, because life is precious. Don't waste any time at all. Don't waste time at all. And so many people, especially your young listeners, they think that life is, it's infinite. It goes on forever. And, you waste a day here and you waste a day there. It gets habit forming. Just don't waste time and don't hang around with jerks.
Now, what's some of the biggest mistakes, or a couple of the mistakes that kind of stand out as you look back in the early days of you building the businesses and you literally revolutionizing the cable, what we know as cable TV and phones and all that? This is like, you did all this. What's some of the mistakes that kind of stand out to you?
Well, wasting time. I just spoke about it like it's so easy. The reason I know that is because I've done it. I've wasted hours and days.
But hang on, David, it's crazy hearing this from you because of how much you've accomplished. For you to look back and say that you wasted time, like that's amazing to hear. Like even someone that how much you've accomplished over the years to think that you actually still wasted time.
Well, everybody wastes time and probably my biggest asset might be my biggest liability as well, which is I don't know how to give up. So sometimes you're just in a bad deal and you just got to say, hey, I'm going to take my lickings and move on. Yeah. And I just, I stay up for nights and I wake up, I go to bed at 1 a.m. I'm back up at 2 saying like, I can do this. I can solve this problem. And then, a year goes by and you say to yourself, it's unsolvable or it's not worth the effort. And you just don't want to fail, but you might've been better off to say, hey, look, I got into a bad situation. I got to take my lickings and move on. There was so I can fight another day. Right. Walter Scott, one of my many mentors, it used to say to me, and it's not perfect. He didn't say it in it's not a perfectly structured sentence. Right. He used to say, your first loss is your least loss. And what he mean is, look, if you're in a bad deal, it probably ain't going to get better. So you probably better take the loss and move on. And that ties back to wasting your time. Proving to someone that you could solve a very difficult problem might not be the best use to your time, because maybe you could have spent the time solving a bigger problem. So I'd say wasting time or not saying no. That's another way of saying it, Jas.
Yes.
I didn't say no enough early on.
Got it. And so you kind of just took the opportunities as they came. And then you obviously being someone that didn't want to give up, it's hard for you to get out 75. Once you've already given 75% of your effort and time, it's probably tough to give up at that time. So you're like, I'm going to get this to 100.
Exactly right. Exactly right. And it's Jas, it's easy to say yes. It's hard to say no. And I should have said no more often. I should have said no more often.
I'm glad you never said no to me yet. So that's awesome. Thank you for that.
What I think is your audience and what I think you're trying to do, and I only know this, I don't know you, but I just know you through social media. But when I look at your profile, it looks like, you're just trying to, help people, find their inner entrepreneurial experience.
Their passion. You mentioned it in the book, and that's what I'm really trying to do. And thank you so much for that compliment. It's one of the highest compliments that I've read. I mean, that means a lot coming from you, David. And so in terms of what you mentioned in the book is don't follow money, because if it was David following money, you would be working and climbing up the corporate ladder. And I'm taking this from you, but you followed passion, and then some way, somehow, you figured out that the money follows the passion.
Energy follows your attention, and your results follow your energy. So I like to say, be careful what you pay attention to, because wherever you put your attention.
I'm sorry, David, can you just say that one more time? Because I want to make sure my listeners got that. That was really written.
Well, your energy follows your attention and your results follow your energy. So wherever you're putting your attention is definitely where your energy is going to end up going. And wherever your energy goes is where your results are going to come from. So people that you see a lot of people that spend a huge amount of time talking about, oh, what if, could have, woulda, coulda, shoulda, this happened, which is bad. That person's an asshole. This is bad. That's bad. And all that energy and attention is going towards that negative. Well, and then they wonder why they're getting no good results. It just be careful where you put your attention or your energy, because it just follows a path. You start paying attention to something and then your energy starts going there, and that's where your results go. And that's both positive and negative. The same thing happens on the downside as happens on the upside.
You would have, could have, and all you end up doing is shitting all over yourself, right?
Exactly.
I want to hear your thoughts on balancing that personal life, and hats off to your wife, because she followed you around, and I knew it was tough for you to get her to New Jersey, but you're at one point, and so talk to me about balancing that business life and that entrepreneurial spirit of yours with your personal life. You have kids, and I know you've taken them around a lot, but how did you balance all that?
My kids were a priority, so that piece of it, I think, did very, very well.
Right.
I was blessed that I'm healthy and I have a high energy level, so I was able to work all day, come home, have dinner with the kids, help them with the schoolwork, then go back to work. I didn't need a lot of sleep. I was lucky in that regard. I kept myself healthy, so I was able. If you keep yourself in shape, in young people need to know this. If you keep yourself in shape, you can go a long way. You can keep that Energizer Bunny going a long time. Yeah. If you don't, you're gonna. I was shocked to look at Harvey Weinstein on the news. He's only 67 years old. He looks 167. So that's
easily. I saw that yesterday too. I know what you're talking about with the walker, right?
Yeah, he's 67 years old, but that's an abusive lifestyle. And a lot of that guy obviously has a lot of anger and a lot of bitterness and a lot of problems, but a lot of excess and a lot of negative energy floating around in his body. So, everybody's got to do the best they can and if you're around people that love you and you love them, it just makes life so much easier. So I've been lucky in that regard as well.
You led a big number of people. I think at one point one of your companies had 12,000.
Yeah, 12,000.
So what's your advice from
that was a start? That was a startup, by the way. So we started with one.
Oh, wow, that's crazy! Congratulations on all this success, by the way. If I didn't say that yet. So at your peak, how many people were in your organization that you were leading, David?
Well, at that time, we had two companies. We had one with about 2,500, one with 12,000. So we had roughly 15,000. But the number of employees doesn't dictate how the complexity of your job. Sometimes more employees is easier because there's more people to do the work. I wouldn't pat myself on the back on the number of employees I've had. Sometimes you have 6 employees and, the workload in front of you is overwhelming. Sometimes you have 12,000 employees. But hey, look, I liked having a lot of employees because I like spending time with the men and women in the field. When I had that company with 12,000 employees and the other one with 2,500 at the same time, it was 2 separate companies. But I was out on the road all the time.
Right.
I love being out in the field offices with the installers, the guys in the trucks, the guys in the warehouse. I love that. I love going. We used to have these once a month. We'd have these at 7 a.m. I'd be out in one of the warehouses and I'd have bagels and coffee and I'd just sit around and, for 45 minutes before work would start, everybody'd come in and I'd take questions. I'd give sort of a 15-minute talk on the state of the business. Then I'd take questions for 45 minutes. and get to know everybody. And that's where you learned everything. That was a fun part of the job.
Just growing out the business and the people. Like I mean, right now I have 35, but out of the 35, there's 10 really close core staff. And I totally understand what you said when you have 6. The 10, I feel like we can take on the world, just even the 10 that's in my core staff, because each person's like worth 2-3 people to me. But I know them intimately, know what they're going through. And I'm in the process of hopefully building out a larger organization. But like, I totally agree with you. It really comes down to the people.
Yeah, 100%. It always comes down to the people. But you know what? Thank God it comes down to the people, because that's the fun part. I mean, dealing with people. Who wants to deal with widgets? Dealing with the people is the fun part. You know, some people, make a joke about it and say, oh, my business is great except for all the people issues. Well, what the hell's wrong with them? The people issues are the best part. Hiring someone and training them and helping them and watching them grow, that's the worthwhile part. That's what's wrong with business right now and around the world. These businesses used to think it was their job to contribute to the communities in which they did business. Now they think their job is to extract from those communities. And that's why business has such a bad rap. That's why a lot of young people are, embracing, people like Bernie Sanders and Elizabeth Warren, is because they're saying, hey, Bernie Sanders is saying, business is bad. Well, newsflash, business is not bad. Business is what makes the world work. But on the other hand, politicians aren't bad either. No one's evil, and we shouldn't make them out to be evil. It's just that business has gotten to the point where they're extracting too much value from the communities. It used to be if you had 100 stores, say, and one would be the best and one would be the worst. And you'd say to your staff, you'd say, okay, we have a really bad performing store, so we all have to work together to make it better. Now, businesses say we have a bad performing store, let's just close it. Well, what about the community that you're serving? You can't just keep the best stores and not serve the underserved. That's what contributes to the have and the have-nots. And businesses are supposed to have an obligation to serve the communities that they're making money from. I mean, you're taking money. You can't just take money from some communities, and then when that community is struggling and you're not making money anymore, just close it down. Now, if that's your only business and you're not making money and you can't make payroll, that's a different story. But if you have a successful business and you have a few shops or a few widgets that people are using that are helpful and contributing to society, you sort of have a obligation to keep those trains moving, in my view anyway. And that's the way business used to work.
One of my favorite chapters in your book has to be chapter 6, work on your strengths, forget your weaknesses. And I don't know if it's because I have so many weaknesses in my life, and I think I only have like 3% that I do really, really well. And it's one of them is try anyways, my best to connect with someone like yourself and just people in general. I like the selling aspect of a business, like actually selling, like if it's a product or a service. Everything else, I have so many weaknesses. Why was that such an important chapter for you to put in your book?
Okay, Jas. Well, first of all, you just listed 2 strengths that you have: connecting at a human level with people in sales. So why would you worry about any of your weaknesses? Those are 2. Connecting with people on a human level is sort of the ultimate gift that God can give you, is the ability to do that. So you could cruise through life enjoying every day if you can connect with people at a human level. And then on top of that, sales is the best job in the world because you're never unemployed. You can always find a job selling something. So you got the 2 greatest gifts God gave anybody. So I wouldn't worry about any of your weaknesses. But anyway.
Well, thank you. Thank you for reading Rainbow, because every time the teacher rolled in that TV with your show, I knew it was like I didn't have to study anymore. So thank you for that.
Well, the school system is all busted because the school system is designed, the chairs are in a line. You know why the chairs are all in a line? Because, no. Because 150 years ago, the janitor wanted them that way because it was easier to sweep between the chairs. I mean, of course you want them in a line. How else? It's the easiest way to clean the classroom. But who when's the last time you had a meeting with 35 people and said to them all line up in little row? Adults don't.
Never.
Of course not. It's the stupidest thing in the world. So it is, everything about it was done for convenience. And teachers want everybody to study the same thing because it's easier for the teacher. It's the most ridiculous thing in the world. And they always tell you, oh, go home and work on your weaknesses. Well, how come they don't tell the athlete that they didn't tell Tom Brady to go work on his weaknesses. They told him to work on throwing that football. So the athletes, they instantly say, oh, go work on that, go work on that, go work on that. And they say, look, if you look at college football and college basketball, you think those guys are getting straight A's in their class? Most of them aren't. Most of them, might not even be going to class, but somewhere someone told them to work on their strengths. And in some ways, it's unfortunate because a lot of those people have nowhere to go after college football or college basketball. But so in some ways, that particular bit of advice for them, if your strength is tackling people running with the ball, that has a limited career path if you don't make it into the NFL. But in general, the concept of working on your strengths isn't taught in school. The opposite is taught, and it's wrong, and it's not effective. God made everybody different, and find everybody's strength, find out what they do that's special, and work on that. You can improve your strengths almost infinitely. You can improve your weaknesses negligibly. And so why are they telling some girl who is really bad at math to keep on going back and doing more math problems when she's the most beautiful writer in the class? Why are they telling someone who's, an unbelievable ability to connect at a human level with other people? Why are they, telling him to go spend more time on science? Why?
You just described my co-host Laura. Like, math is not something she should even try. In fact, I'm glad that the phones have calculators. But when she needs to write something, she's actually ghostwriting a book for me because I can't write an email. But I'm so glad that she went all in on that strength and not tried to fix the math.
Exactly. And but teachers do this because it's easier for them, not because it's best. And that's a real problem. And that's something that needs to be rethought. What I want to do is, travel around the world, finding people that are trying to rethink business problems. And education is one of them. Crazy. People aren't just doubling down on your strengths.
I have two more for you because I know we're getting short on time. But for our viewers and listeners, both myself and my team and David's team, we will, fingers crossed, if everything aligns, we will be doing a face-to-face in the very, very near future. One is a question that came from my 19-year-old executive assistant right now, Luke. And his question for you, David, is what was the biggest mindset shift that kind of came into your head at some point in your life to propel you to the next stage?
Probably what we talked about earlier, that all these people that say it can't be done are just saying that because they don't want you to succeed, because it makes them look bad, because they have no intention of trying. They're going to go home and turn the TV on and have a scratch, and they have no intention of trying. So they don't want you to try because it makes them look bad. So they're sitting home watching TV, having a scratch. They don't want you. They don't want you to be succeeding. So once I realized that, I said, hey, the whole world's open to me.
Last but not least, thank you so much for that. And Luke is smiling here and he thanks you as well. What's next for you? You've done a lot, David, and obviously this book, I'm going to do everything in my power to get this into the hands of as many people as possible. But aside from getting the book out to a lot of people's hands, what's next for you personally, professionally?
I used to do a lot of TV production, and I'd like to do some. I'd like to get back into that. I'd like to do a TV show that's loosely around people that are rethinking business models around the world. So I have a TV project in the works, and that's probably next for me.
Well, congratulations once again on your success as well as this book. I try my best to read or listen to, I should say, as many books as possible. But this is one that I'm definitely going to restart in my car again. So to anyone who's listening, do yourself a favor. Do a favor for everyone around you. Get a copy of this book, Total Rethink by David McCourt. It will not only change, if you're in business, change your business acumen, but it will definitely move the needle in changing your life. David, thank you so much for all the knowledge that you just dropped on our podcast, as well as this book. And thank you so much for your time.
Hey, my pleasure, Jas. And listen, let's do it again in person in North America.
I love that. Thank you. What my team will be in touch with yours. And I cannot wait. To meet you face to face.
Fantastic. Thank you.
Thanks a lot, David. Thank you.
Yep. Bye-bye.
This has been the REC Experience Podcast with Jas Takhar, an REC Canada production.
Hey guys, thanks so much for watching and listening. Please take a second right now to subscribe and follow us on whatever podcast platform you're watching or listening. It means the world to me. Thank you.